What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Stephen Thompson, coming at you with another Inside Pitt postgame report. I'm here at the Petersen Events Center. The Pitt Panthers have just fallen 69-58 to the Syracuse Orange. It is their fifth loss in 6 ACC games. They are now 10-6 on the season overall, and it is 10-7 overall. And as far as game analysis goes, I mean, there's not much to really break down. They didn't shoot well. 35% from the floor, 19% from three, 63% from the line. And while I think they did a bunch of things decently well enough to win, you post those numbers shooting the ball, and you're just not going to win. I mean, you put yourself in a hole, and you need an extraordinarily bad night from your opponent in order to make a victory possible in that sense. So the Panthers didn't do that. I mean, and it's becoming a common refrain, an exhausting refrain, one that we're all too familiar with, but it is a fact of life for these Panthers that they are just not good shooters. And that has really just killed them, you know? I think they won rebounding. They had a 15-3 advantage in fast break points. They won second chance points by 4. I thought they still defended pretty well, all things considered. I mean, I know Syracuse knocked down some shots, especially from outside. They hit 10 of 17 3-point shots. That's just not something that they do. I mean, that's not something they have done all year, even on the open shots. And the Orange somehow figured out how to make the Panthers really pay from deep. But even through all that, I mean, you hold a team to under 70 points and you expect to win that way. I mean, that's a winning formula in college basketball. But the Panthers just didn't have enough. They just were not good enough shooting the ball to complement some of the other things that they did decently well, and just kind of fell short on. It's weird because I thought they had a great plan in the first, I want to say a little less than 5 minutes. It was about 4:23 game action. I think they started the game 5 of 9 from the floor. The ball had life and energy. They were moving it. They were passing really well. They were cutting really well off the ball. And it was not, they didn't have a ton of assists that led directly to baskets, but they had got those kind of hockey assists where, one guy makes a pass that leads to an extra pass that gives a guy a drive, and they can get to the rim for either free throws or a bucket or a layup. And that formula was working, and it helped the Panthers jump out to, I believe, a decently healthy margin at the beginning of the game. Yeah, they were up. I mean, they led by 4 on a couple different occasions. They led by 6 even in the first half, just before the midway point of the first half. And then it kind of all fell apart just because they weren't making shots. I think they went on a streak where they missed 6 in a row following the midway point of the first half, and Syracuse proceeded to score 15, 20, 22, 23 of the first half's final 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 23 of the final 29 points of the first half. And once they grabbed that lead, they didn't look back. And Pitt made some inroads. I think they cut it to maybe 8 or 9 in the second half, kind of behind some tremendous individual shot making from Jalen Lowe, but it just wasn't enough. It was too little, too late. Look, this is bleak. Not going to lie to you. This isn't quite Stallings or even early Capel-esque, but the results are starting to look pretty eerily familiar. The stuff that's the same. It's the shooting the basketball. I mean, even when they get open looks, they're just not falling. It's the comments about effort. I mean, it's the comments about that Jeff Capel gave us. And I want to preface this by saying, he still believes in his team. He still loves his team, but he needs his team to do more. He wants them to be more aggressive diving for balls. He wants them to play a little bit harder. He wants them to be more mentally tough. And then I think the biggest thing for me is kind of the snowball effect of, I don't even know, the opposite of success. It's when things are going wrong, they let it compound. They let it spill over into everything that they do. When one thing goes wrong, it becomes an issue for every other facet of their game. And I think that's something you saw both in the macro and the micro when you watch those real early Jeff Capel teams, is that, they let, if they weren't playing excellent all the way through a game, they just kind of let it affect every part of their game. They did what Capel refers to, I think, is becoming insular. They looked inward. They didn't look outward. They didn't look at the rest of the team to help them kind of pull out of that funk. They just thought I need to be the one to pull us out of this. And I think you see a little bit of that in this year's team. They need someone to step up, but they can't have someone trying to take over. This doesn't work. It's not a winning formula. That said, I think there are some reasons for optimism. I think there's some reasons not to give up, because I think this team's a little different. I think they're definitely younger than a lot of the teams that Jeff Capel's had, even the ones that have struggled. I think they're more talented, and they do other things well. Like I said, they still defend at a high level. They still rebound pretty well, except for when they're playing Duke. And they've got some guys who can score. And I mean, you got Ishleggett coming back. You got him getting healthier. We'll talk about him later. He was a bright spot. I mean, Jalen Lowe has been a revelation. The more he touches the ball, the more he's played well. I mean, I don't think it's time to give up yet, because I think this team still has a lot of growing to do. I think they're still, like I said, really young, and that, gives them a lot of leeway to grow and get better. But I mean, this is just bleak, right? I mean, this is just not a good team. I think that's pretty plain to see. This is not a team that is even going to threaten for an ACC tournament spot. Certainly not a top half of the league spot in the ACC tournament. And we're talking, an NIT berth probably being the best case scenario for this team right now, because they're not even getting the gimmies. I mean, they're beating a team like Louisville, but not looking very convincing doing it. And they're not beating the Syracuse team that I think they're at least even with, that they are at least matched with in terms of talent. They're maybe a little bit less experienced, but you forget, on the road in a tougher environment, they held an 11-point halftime lead. That was a game they should have won, and they're fumbling away chances like that. And the road does get a little bit easier from here, but just how much does that matter when, like I said, Pitt's not even able to get the gimmies, the games that you feel like they should win. I mean, they were 7.5-point favorites. I think that number was a little high, but I mean, the Panthers have owned Syracuse in this building. Like I said, they haven't been swept in the season series by the Orange in 4 years, and they've won, I think, the last 3 against the Orange at the Petersen Events Center. This has been a fortress for them, and they're just not able to lean on the things that they once were able to lean on. As far as bright spots, I mean, Jalen Lowe, like I said, a career-high 20 points. He was instant offense for them, and really their only offense, especially in the second half. Like I mentioned, when they made some inroads, cut it to single digits in the second half, it was pretty much all Lowe, just making plays off the dribble. He was thoughtfully aggressive, I thought. He was, under control, but drove with purpose and drove with energy and drove with intention, and just was never sped up, never rushed, always had a plan, going to the basket, and just did a lot of things really well for them, and continues to get better the more he plays and the more he starts. And the guy he replaced, I thought, in the line, I mean, it was great to see Ishleggett back out there, and I think really running. He was efficient, scoring the ball, rebounded really well, played good defense on Judah Mintz, I thought. He was guarding a bunch of different guys. There were a couple of Syracuse guys that were really hurting them, and Leggett was the guy that Jeff Capel pitted on them to kind of stop the bleeding and slow him down. And I thought, even in only 17 minutes, which is not a season low, but pretty close to it, if not kind of his second lowest minute total of the year, I thought he was really good. And the Panthers are going to need more of that. They're going to need him back fully healthy as he recovers from that shoulder injury. Jeff Capel said earlier this week that he's close, but they need him fully back if they are going to contend with Duke this weekend, and then kind of moving forward, just trying to take advantage of an ACC schedule that gets a little bit more forgiving as the year wears on. As far as negatives in terms of individual performances, Blake Hinson just struggling shooting the ball and pressing and in a slump that is much more prolonged than I think anything he's ever really experienced in his life. And Pitt's just not going to win when their best player isn't shooting well. And I think it's that simple. We've talked about that before, and it's persisted. Another kind of player in the same category, Bub Carrington. And I think, I'm writing about this tonight, and you'll see it go up when this episode does, but I think it's time to bench him. I just don't think he's impacted winning right now in a real positive way. It doesn't mean you got to bury him. Doesn't mean he's got to be, completely removed from the lineup. But I mean, he went 0 for 9 to 0 for 10, tonight, didn't score, and didn't think many of his shots were particularly good. I think, when I mentioned that early run when they were shooting well, you could kind of notice Carrington kill the momentum a little bit when he, snakes around and dribbles a bunch and is the only one to touch the ball in a possession, and then shoots a pull-up mid-range jumper that doesn't go in. There's just bad shots. I mean, I'd seen him do it later in the game too, where Pitt's on a run. They have a chance to really make it a game, and Carrington's in transition and shooting a pull up three, and it just it's not necessary. It's not what Pitt's good at. It's not what he's good at, and I don't think he's finding a lane for him to really impact the game, impact winning in a major way while he's not scoring. And until he finds that, he's just not worth starting, in my opinion, and not worth keeping on the floor for as long as he is, especially when you've got Leggett coming back and Lowe playing really well. Other than that, I mean, same front court struggles, just Federico's not able to put the ball in the basket consistently as he is. Guillermo Diaz-Graham, I don't think he's providing much of an impact either. They need more from there, but I mean, that's old hat at this point. A lot of the same problems for the Panthers and a similar result because of it. But with that, I'm going to head out of here. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another Inside Pitt Postgame Report. My name is Stephen Thompson, signing off from the Petersen Events Center. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. That's youtube.com/at Inside the Panthers, and follow all our reporting at InsideThePanthers.com. Appreciate y'all tuning in, and I'll see you next time.